It's 3 a.m. in a basement apartment in Brampton, Ontario. 6 mattresses cover every inch of floor space. The air is thick with the smell of instant noodles and broken dreams. Each of those mattresses costs $500 a month. The young man sleeping closest to the furnace paid $15,000 to a consultant in a strip mall back home. They promised him paradise. They showed him pictures of campus buildings that looked like something out of Harry Potter. But this isn't Hogwarts. This is a room above a Domino's pizza. And the diploma he's working toward? It's not going to get him what he was promised anymore. For the last decade, this was the reality for millions. It was called the international student boom. Governments made billions. Universities made billions. Landlords made billions. Everyone was getting rich, except the students. But in 2024 and 2025, the music stopped. The golden ticket has been revoked. The borders are slamming shut. And what happens next is going to reshape global education for the next generation. Welcome to the end of an era. Let's start with the worst offender in this global game of musical chairs, Canada. For years, immigration experts called Canada the Wild West of international education. If you could fog a mirror and pay the fees, you were in. The numbers are staggering. Between 2013 and 2023, international students in Canada didn't just grow, they exploded. The number nearly tripled to over 1 million permit holders. Think about that for a second. That's more people than the entire population of San Francisco dropped into a country with a housing supply that hasn't changed significantly since the 1990s. But here's what most people don't understand. The real story isn't the prestigious universities like University of Toronto or McGill. No, the real story is the strip mall colleges. And I need to explain this carefully because this was an actual scam masquerading as higher education. Here's how it worked. Public colleges in Ontario were desperate for cash because the provincial government had frozen domestic tuition for years. So these colleges discovered a loophole. They started forming public-private partnerships. Essentially, a reputable public college hours away from Toronto would license its curriculum to a private career college operating out of a strip mall in Brampton or Mississauga. These private colleges would then pump out diplomas in general arts and science, or hospitality management, to tens of thousands of students who never stepped foot on the actual main campus. Why did students sign up for this? Not for the education. Nobody goes to a strip mall for a quality education. They signed up because these diplomas came with the Holy Grail, the Post-Graduation Work Permit or PGWP. It was a backdoor immigration scheme disguised as higher education. And then everything broke. Rent in cities like Brampton and Surrey skyrocketed. We started seeing reports of something called hot bedding, where students would rent a bed in shifts. You sleep for 8 hours, then you get up and someone else takes your spot. Food banks designed for homeless Canadians were being raided by international students who couldn't afford groceries. The social contract was fraying at the seams. So in 2024, the Canadian government panicked. Immigration Minister Mark Miller implemented a hard cap, slashing new study permits by 35% for 2024. But they didn't stop there. In late 2024, they announced the 2025 cap would be cut by another 10%, bringing the target down to 437,000 permits. But here's the detail that completely ruins the business model: the attestation letter. Previously, you just applied to the federal government for a study permit. Simple. Now, every province has a quota. To even apply for a visa, you need a provincial attestation letter, a PAL. It's basically a golden ticket before you can get the golden ticket. And guess who isn't getting them? The private colleges. The strip mall schools have been effectively zeroed out. The result? Absolute chaos. Major public colleges in Ontario are projecting deficits of hundreds of millions of dollars. Conestoga College, which was the poster child for this explosion, at one point nearly 100% of their enrollment growth was international students, is watching their empire crumble in real time. But it gets worse. The PGWP rules changed. If you graduate from one of those private partnership colleges now, no work permit. 0. If you're an undergrad student and you want to bring your spouse, no open work permit for them either. Starting November 1, 2024, graduates from public colleges only qualify for a PGWP if their field of study is related to occupations with labor shortages. And you need to meet specific language benchmarks: CLB 7 for university graduates and CLB 5 for college graduates. Canada has effectively put up a neon sign that says, "We are closed unless you're getting a master's degree or a PhD." The era of the diploma mill to permanent residency pipeline in Canada is dead, buried, and the economic fallout across strip malls in the Greater Toronto Area is going to be a bloodbath. If Canada was the Wild West, Australia was the gold rush. But down under they had a unique problem: ghost colleges. You're probably thinking, what the hell is a ghost college? It sounds like a bad horror movie, but it's actually a brilliant illicit economic engine. Here's the setup. You arrive in Australia on a student visa attached to a legitimate, expensive university. You pay the first semester's fees, maybe $15,000 or $20,000, to get in the door. But 3 weeks after you arrive, you drop out. Then you transfer to a vocational education and training (VET) provider, a cheap private college that operates out of an office building. These colleges are called ghosts because often nobody actually goes to class. The students are there to work. They drive Ubers. They work in kitchens. They work in construction. The college just marks them as present for a fee, keeping their visa valid. It's a pay-to-play visa scheme. The Australian government, watching their migration numbers hit record highs, over 500,000 net migration in a single year, decided to burn the ghosts. In March 2024, Australia scrapped their old genuine temporary entrant rule and replaced it with the genuine student test. It sounds like just a name change, but it's absolutely lethal. Immigration officers now have broad discretion to ask, does this course actually make sense for your career? If you're a 30-year-old engineer from Nepal applying for a Certificate 3 in commercial cookery, the answer is now, rejected. If you have a gap in your study history, rejected. If the course is significantly cheaper than others in the sector, rejected. Visa refusal rates for students from key markets like India, Nepal, and Pakistan have hit record highs, with rejection rates climbing over 20 to 30% in some sectors. But the Australian government didn't stop at the test. They went straight for the wallet. In mid-2024, they more than doubled the student visa application fee, hiking it from $710 to a staggering $1,600 AUD. And that's non-refundable. If you get rejected, the government keeps your $1,600. It is literally a tax on hope. And just like Canada, Australia introduced a national planning level for 2025, a cap of 270,000 new international student commencements. The universities are screaming. The University of Sydney and Melbourne are warning that research funding, which is cross-subsidized by international student fees, is going to evaporate. The message from Canberra is crystal clear. They want high-value students. They want the rich kids who will go to the prestigious group of 8 universities, pay $50,000 a year and leave when they're done. They do not want the gig economy workers disguised as students. For the student in Mumbai or Manila, the Australian dream just got twice as expensive and 10 times harder to reach. If Australia is burning the ghosts, the United Kingdom is effectively burning the lifeboats. For years, the UK had a secret weapon in the international student market: dependence. Unlike the US or Canada, where bringing your spouse and kids was a logistical nightmare, the UK was relatively open. If you came for a 1-year master's degree, you could bring your family. This was a lifeline for mature students from Nigeria, India, and Ghana. One partner studies, the other works to support the family. It wasn't just education, it was a family investment strategy. But in January 2024, the doors slammed shut. The Conservative government banned international students, except those on research-based postgraduate courses, from bringing dependents. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. In 2024 alone, the number of visas issued to dependents fell by a staggering 85%. Then came the new Labour government in 2025. Many hoped for a reprieve. Instead, they doubled down. In May 2025, the Immigration White Paper dropped 2 bombshells that are currently wrecking the sector. First, the graduate route cut. The famous post-study work visa was slashed from 24 months down to 18 months. That 6-month cut might not sound like much, but it's the difference between finding a solid career track job and having to pack your bags the moment your lease ends. Second, the international levy. This is the one that has vice-chancellors sweating in their tweed jackets. The government proposed a 6% levy on the tuition fees universities collect from international students. Think about this. Universities are already using international fees to subsidize domestic students who lose money on every seat. And now the government wants to tax the profit that keeps the lights on. The result? We're looking at a financial death spiral. According to the Office for Students, by the end of the 2025-26 academic year, 75% of UK higher education institutions could be in deficit. We're not talking about Oxford or Cambridge. They have endowments bigger than some countries. We're talking about the middle class of universities, places like Coventry, Sheffield Hallam, or the University of South Wales. There are currently 24 providers officially flagged as at risk of insolvency. Imagine enrolling in a university paying £18,000 in tuition, and midway through your second semester the university goes bankrupt. That is no longer dystopian fiction. In 2025 Britain, it is a genuine risk. And now we arrive at the final boss of the international student system, the United States. For a while, the US was actually the beneficiary of Canada and the UK dropping the ball. When Canada closed its doors, students looked south. But in 2025, with the inauguration of the Trump 2.0 administration, the welcome mat was pulled out and replaced with a tripwire. Let's look at the numbers. In the 2023 to 2024 cycle, the rejection rate for F1 student visas hit 41%, the highest denial rate in over a decade. If you're applying from Africa, the numbers are even grimmer. Rejection rates for students from West Africa have hovered near 50 to 60%. But the real shock came just weeks ago in December 2025. The White House announced an expansion of travel restrictions, effectively Travel Ban 2.0. Starting January 1, 2026, nationals from nearly 40 countries will face partial or full visa suspensions. This list isn't just hostile nations. It includes major student source countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and Malawi. The administration's stated logic? Security vetting deficiencies. The reality? It's an America First firewall. And it gets worse for those already inside. In August 2025, the Department of Homeland Security proposed a rule to end duration of status. Here's what that means. Previously, if you were on a student visa, you could stay as long as you were studying. Now they want to cap student visas at fixed 4-year terms. Need 5 years for a PhD? Too bad. You have to reapply, pay new fees, and risk rejection all over again. The message from Washington is loud and clear. We don't want you to stay. The H-1B visa, the main route for foreign workers, is under extreme scrutiny. And the OPT, the optional practical training program, is being tightened. The bridge from student to worker is being dismantled plank by plank. Okay, so governments are high-fiving each other for securing the borders. But here's the part they aren't talking about in the press conferences. The economic hangover. For the last 10 years, international students weren't just students. They were a stimulus package. In Canada alone, international education contributed over $22 billion annually to GDP, more than auto parts, lumber, or wheat. Now pull that money out. What happens? Let's talk about the Brampton landlord. You know the type. The guy who bought a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, renovated the basement into an illegal apartment, and stuffed 6 students in there at $500 a head. He was cash flow positive, driving a G-Wagon, living the dream. With the new caps, that demand evaporates. In cities like Brampton, Canada, or suburbs of Melbourne, Australia, vacancy rates are creeping up. We're already seeing panic selling. The slumlord millionaire business model is dead. And when those investors rush for the exit, they drag the local housing market down with them. It's not just housing. Who is keeping those strip malls alive? Who was buying the $10 phone plans, the fast food, the used Honda Civics? International students were a captive consumer base. Without them, thousands of small businesses in college towns are looking at a 30% revenue drop. We're going to see for lease signs popping up like mushrooms after rain. And here's the kicker for the locals who think, good, send them home. Do you know why your domestic tuition was so low? Because the international students were subsidizing it. They were paying 3-4x the fee so you could pay 1x. With that revenue gone, universities have 2 choices. Cut programs. Goodbye, arts and humanities departments. Raise tuition for citizens. Let me make a prediction. By 2027, domestic tuition fees in Canada and the UK will rise significantly. The international student boom was a subsidy for the West. And now the bill is coming due. So if the doors to the Big Four, US, UK, Canada, Australia, are closing, do millions of students just stop wanting an education? Of course not. Water finds a crack. The demand is just moving. Welcome to the rise of the alternative destinations. Germany is enrolling more foreign students than ever, more than 400,000 in 2024-25, and they've launched several policies to help retain them. Their public universities are effectively tuition-free, even for international students. While Canada is kicking people out, Germany is handing out opportunity cards, Chancenkarte, to skilled workers. Enrollment data shows nearly 60,000 Indian students are expected to be enrolled in Germany in 2025, up from 49,500 in 2023. Germany needs 400,000 immigrants a year to keep their economy afloat, and they aren't being shy about it. These countries are facing a demographic cliff. They're running out of young people. Japan hosted more than 336,000 international students in 2024, growing 21% from the year before and closing in on its target of 400,000 by 2033. They're simplifying visas and begging graduates to stay and work. South Korea hit its target of 300,000 international students 2 years earlier than planned. They've increased part-time work allowances to 25 hours per week for bachelor students and 35 hours for master's and doctoral students. In 2025, South Korea will allow international students to remain in the country for up to 3 years to look for a job, compared to the previous 6-month limit. The culture shock is real. But if the choice is Japan with a job or Canada with a deportation order, the choice is easy. This is the sleeper strategy. Why move to London and pay £2,000 a month in rent when you can get a University of London degree in Malaysia, Dubai, or Egypt? Western universities, terrified of losing revenue, are rushing to open satellite campuses abroad. The degree is the same, but the migration doesn't happen. The West keeps the tuition money but loses the labor force. It's the ultimate have your cake and eat it too strategy, until the source countries realize they don't need the Western brand name anymore. While the West is building walls, the East is building bridges. For decades, the flow of brains was one way, east to west. But the geopolitical wind has shifted. We're witnessing the regionalization of education. You might think of China only as a country that sends students. But watch closely. They're pivoting. Their Study in China initiative is targeting the global South, students from Pakistan, Thailand, and Africa who can't afford the $50,000 tuition in Boston or Sydney. They're offering full scholarships, English-taught medical degrees, and a direct pipeline into their massive belt and road infrastructure projects. Look at Malaysia and Vietnam. They're positioning themselves as the education hubs of ASEAN. Why go to Canada and risk deportation when you can go to Kuala Lumpur, pay a fraction of the cost, get a degree from a branch campus of a top UK university like Nottingham or Monash, and live in a booming economy? And then there's India. The Indian government has realized they're bleeding billions of dollars in foreign exchange reserves to pay for Western tuition. Their new strategy? Internationalization at home. They're inviting top foreign universities to set up campuses directly in India. Deakin University from Australia has already opened a campus in Gift City, Gujarat. The message to the Indian middle class is changing. It used to be go west to succeed. Now it's bring the West here and keep the money in the family. If this trend holds, the international student boom didn't end. It just moved east. The West is about to lose its monopoly on global talent. And once that dominance is gone, it's not coming back. So where does this leave you? If you're a student planning your future right now, the playbook has completely changed. The era of the blind bet, where you just buy a plane ticket and hope for the best, is over. The golden ticket is now a lottery ticket, and the odds are getting worse every day. Here's your reality check. Don't look at university rankings. Look at the immigration minister's Twitter feed. The rules are changing weekly. What's true today might not be true next month. General degrees are risky. Trade skills, healthcare, and advanced STEM degrees are the only visas that are mostly recession-proof. If you're studying general business management, you're playing Russian roulette. Germany, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, and emerging hubs in Asia are desperate for talent. The American dream might be on pause, but the global dream is still alive, if you're willing to look at a different map. The international student boom of the 2010s was a wild, unregulated gold rush. We are now in the correction phase. It's painful. It's messy. And a lot of people are going to lose money. But for the smart, the adaptable, and the informed, there is always a way through. The West got greedy. They turned education into a revenue stream and immigration into a Ponzi scheme. Now they're paying the price. Universities are going bankrupt. Economies are contracting. And the global South, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, is realizing they don't need to send their best and brightest to Western campuses anymore. The market is shifting from the Big Four to the Big 14, expanding beyond the traditional English-speaking destinations to include Spain, Italy, Germany, France, Malaysia, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and several more. This isn't just about visa policies. This is about a fundamental realignment of global power. The next generation of doctors, engineers, and entrepreneurs won't be trained in London or Toronto. They'll be trained in Seoul, Berlin, and Kuala Lumpur. And 20 years from now, we'll look back at 2024 to 2025 as the moment the West lost its educational empire. I want to hear from you. Are you currently studying abroad? Are you a landlord in a college town watching your rental income evaporate? Or are you rethinking your entire life plan because of what you've learned today? Drop your story in the comments below. If you had to choose a country to study in right now, ignoring the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, where would you go? I'll be replying to the most interesting answers in the first 24 hours. If you found this analysis valuable, destroy that like button so YouTube knows this is a topic worth covering. And if you want to understand the other side of this economic shift, the housing market crash that's coming next, click the video that just popped up on your screen. Stay sharp. Stay informed. And remember, when the doors close in one place, they open somewhere else. I'll see you in the next one.